Hayden, how we doing?
Maddie, I am doing great, ready to go. Excited to talk about some real estate.
Let's get into it. Today we are going to be talking about once you are in a market, what are some of the factors you look at? Where are you saying absolutely not to? Where are you saying let's do it to?
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Yeah. I mean, we talked last time about kind of how we narrow down specific markets or MSAs, metropolitan statistical areas. But now, once you find those MSAs that you're wanting to target, how do you target those markets within that market, especially if it's out of state? Because, like for us, we live in Southern California. We bought in Tucson, Arizona. Been in contract in Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri. So yeah, it's a totally different ballgame when you're not in the market. It's not in your backyard. If obviously that's an ideal situation if you're able to invest in your backyard, but investing out of state, there's a total different nuance to it, and you gotta. There's a lot of trust involved. There's a lot of networking you need to do. A lot of people you need to meet, and getting boots on the ground and getting out there and touching and feeling the market. So yeah, we'll
Absolutely.
definitely get into it.
So who are you talking to when you're looking at a market, and within that market, who's the first person you're going to say, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this specific area?"
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you an example. So when I went out when we went out to Tucson, before I did a whole, both of us really did a whole bunch of research on Tucson itself. Obviously, we looked in. We narrowed in Tucson as our ideal city that we want to take the first step in. Once we did that, once we identified Tucson, we went in and I looked at city data, which is basically a site that kind of tells you the crime, it tells you the income, it tells you median household income, jobs, where it's all at, the good areas, the bad areas, just to get a brief lay of the land within Tucson, where you want to stay or where you want to be, where you want to stay away from, especially when investing. Because how I heard, I don't know who it was, but I've heard saying that I really like is when you're looking in an area, would you take your wife there at it's dark? Would you, that if you wouldn't do that, I'm not going to invest there, right? If I
Right.
don't feel safe taking my wife into the location or the market that I'm buying in, I'm not going to buy there. So that's what I first did just to get a lay of the land. Then once I did that, I got on the phone and talked to as many brokers as I could to confirm research. I went in, called them, asked them a bunch of questions about specific listings within that market, and just kind of acted as if I knew the specific area just to confirm. So, for example, there was 3 or 4 listings on the market at the time that were in different areas, and within Tucson, it's kind of hit and miss on specific areas. So I just wanted to confirm. So I looked at the listing. I went on Google Maps and did kind of a virtual walk through the neighborhood. And then I called to confirm and asked a bunch of questions about the specific neighborhood. Some things I was wrong about, some things I was right about, but I was able to further my education on specific areas with that exercise.
Absolutely. I think another good resource is property managers. They're obviously the
Mm-hmm.
ones renting out the units, so they know a lot of the city, depending where their units are themselves, but they know a lot of the city. They're doing a lot of driving around mornings, afternoons, and nights, and they're very familiar with how it all lays out.
Yep. Yeah, and once you get another layer further, contractors, you can
Mhm.
talk to pretty much anybody that's in the once you go and get your feet on the ground and go and look at specific markets. Talk to the tenants, talk to the neighbors, talk to people around, and really get a good feel for that specific location. If you find a property that you're looking at moving forward with, that's kind of how we do a deep dive into a specific neighborhood before we buy. Because I'm not going to go out and blindly, willy nilly, buy a property that I don't know anything about or that I don't know the areas. Because I want to know the neighbors, their kids, where they're going to school, what that school is. That brings up another point. I go on greatschools.org, which is another kind of tip. Greatschools.org tells you the ranking
Mm.
of each or of many schools in the country. So I'll type in the address of the property, and it'll give me the all the elementary schools in the area, all of the junior highs and high schools and charter schools all in the area, and it'll give me their ranking. If it's below a 5, I'm probably not looking much further after that. That's going to be
Yeah,
the end.
that's when there's probably some bars on the windows,
Mhm.
things you don't want to be seeing around your property.
Yep, yep. Now, Matt, tell me, you went through this pretty recently. Tell me what your experience was and what you looked for. We were, to give you some background, we were looking at a property in Tucson a couple weeks ago that we wanted to take down, and we liked the area from our virtual search. We liked the area from the references we got. Then Matt went and got boots on the ground. Tell me, Matt, what I keep saying that Matt went out to the property. He drove the area. What were you looking at when you were searching for this property? What was the things that was piquing your interest as you're driving that neighborhood?
Yeah, so I went 30 minutes early before I met the broker to do the tour of the property itself,
Mm-hmm.
and I drove the entire neighborhood, couple blocks north, east, southwest, the whole area. I looked at a map just on Google, searched for bigger stores, like bigger box stores, like a Target or Starbucks is always a great one. If there's a Starbucks and a Target in the area, probably in a decent area. There's also, when you're driving around, you're also looking for types of cars that are in the driveways, people walking around, bars on windows is always a big one. And really, there was none of that in that remote area, which was phenomenal. You're also right across the street from a country club, so that's a good sign as well. Little bit more money in the area, and not to say that if you drive, 20 minutes or 15 minutes another direction, it might not be the same, but that general vicinity is a very nice area in the sense of when you're just driving around and looking, you feel comfortable being in that area. So once you are able to walk the property, I met with the broker and we went through a couple empty units that were being renovated. Also, I there were a couple neighbors that were out just in their patio areas and just having a normal conversation with them, just kind of getting to know them and seeing what they're like. Those are also helpful signs on what types of tenants you're going to attract in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So that was also a positive sign.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up, because I remember one of the first times I went out with my dad to look for my first rental property. Um, I don't even know if I told you this, but we were out in San Marcos, California. We were looking at a few different properties in the neighborhood, and I just remember being scared to death trying to find a property and trying to make the right decision, because my money only went so far. So I wanted to make the first right decision, and my dad had done it dozens of times, and so we went to this condo complex, walked up, saw my dad was just kind of giving me the lay of the land and just saying, all right, well, I like the cars. The neighbors look okay. There's not a lot of homeless around. I saw, like you're saying, I saw some solid stores, town center, a couple miles away, or about a mile and a half away, which is super nice. He goes, but the next layer is you need to talk to these people. So watch this. So we parked, we got out of the car, and my dad just struck up a conversation with two or three different people that were walking around, and asked them about, how's the neighborhood? Is there a lot of crime going on? Do you guys see, there's a lot of sirens, a lot of police coming through here, and just kind of asked them those types of questions, what the rent or what they were paying for rent, and just kind of getting a feel. Are the neighbors nice? Are they able to afford the rents that they are that's in that community? Are they complaining about the rent? Are they complaining about anything? Are there any complaints? And that was a big eye opener for me, because that was like, man, I didn't even think about talking to the people who are actually there. Right?
Right.
That was back, several years ago, but I didn't even talk. I didn't even think about talking to the people that were there and just having a conversation. They're people too. They get up, they go to work, they come back. They have to live in that neighborhood at night, so they know what the deal is. So that
Absolutely.
furthers your knowledge of the area. So that's a good point.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Anything else that you want to add on to specific areas when you're looking at properties?
I guess the only thing is just what that does, as well as that it gives you some credibility when you're going to talk to these brokers. You know the lay of the land. A lot of these investors from out of town, they'll come in, oh, I want to buy a property, and that's as deep as their knowledge is. I like this market because I know that values are going crazy in this market. Well, that doesn't impress me.
Right.
As a broker, that wouldn't impress me. So if you really, because brokers and property managers and uh, contractors, they take pride in their cities. I live in Southern California. I'm from Northern California. I have pride in the areas that I've lived in. I don't want somebody coming into my area or my town, my city, and just saying, "Yeah, I want to buy here just because home values have gone up." No, I want
Right.
you to know the lay of the land. I don't want you to come in here and just screw things up. That's how people make mistakes. So it goes towards your credibility. It also furthers your networking ability with that person. They're more receptive to you because you give a crap. You want to increase the values of the properties. You want to increase the tenant base in the area, which are huge components to real estate investing. You don't want to, in my opinion, really, and this is just one man's opinion, but you don't want to go in and just put money on a property and then never look at it again and just collect rent checks. That's
Yeah.
not the type of investor I want to be. Matt, that's not the investor that you want to be. And it just doesn't give investors or landlords the right name. So
Absolutely.
that's
I think the
definitely,
one last thing I want to add is
yeah.
location is of utmost importance when you're buying properties out of state or even in state, but location is of utmost important because you're never able to move that piece of land.
Yeah.
So sure you can there's areas around it that can improve, but location is of utmost importance because you're not able to move that piece of property.
Yeah, that's a good point. And going to or last thing you can go into for just a couple minutes is what what was the experience like in the Kansas City property that wasn't necessarily in the greatest neighborhood like these Tucson properties that we're in.
So when we were out in Kansas City, we went in the morning, went in the afternoon, and went at night. Stayed there for about 30 to 45 minutes each time, just observing the in and outs of the property and the surrounding areas. Right next door, basically in the backyard, because there was no fence surrounding the property.
Yeah, to the property that
But
we were looking into.
yeah, but right next door to this property was a liquor mart. Not always the best sign being right next door to a liquor mart or a bar or
Bead shop.
something, yeah, that doesn't draw the best crowd. So that was a big sign for us that we were like, I don't know. And just trusting your gut when you're there, like
Hmm.
the feeling you get of driving around that area or looking at that property, that specific property, trust your gut on what
Hmm.
it's telling you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the neighborhood adjacent to the property was a nice neighborhood,
Hmm.
blue collar neighborhood. Houses were nice. There wasn't a whole lot of bars on the windows, so it fooled us when we were doing our Google Map search. That's why you can't just trust one resource because that looked great. And then as we were driving in where our hotel was, it was about a mile and a half, 2 miles from where we were. Beautiful area near the
Hmm.
KC. I think they're called KCFC or something like that. The pro soccer team. Their
Yeah.
stadium was mile and a half, 2 miles away. The neighborhood around that stadium is brand new and vibrant. It's just this particular location where this specific property was not great, and the landlord or the owner, current owner, did not take care of the property. And that was one thing that stuck out like a sore thumb with us is that the neighborhood looked great, but this property just looked run down. It looked like it never nobody touched it for years, and the cars in the neighbor or in that property were not the nicest cars. You had broken in windows. You had creepy looking cars that we were looking
Yeah.
at, and loud blasting music, and it just the whole our senses were telling us absolutely not. And we were in contract on this, or we had an accepted letter of intent on this contract or on this property. So we ran as fast as we could after that trip. But it was a great
Yeah.
trip to, we really figured out that you can't just trust a Google Map search. You can't just trust a broker who wants to make a deal, getting that deal done. You have to trust your gut. You have to verify all the information you're being told. So take it as far as you can go before you, one, invest your money, two, invest other people's money, and three, spend your time in that market. I mean, those are all big things you need to really take into consideration when you're looking at these properties.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All great points.
yeah. Well, awesome. If there's anything that any of you guys are, have to add to this, or any questions you guys have, definitely let us know. Put it in the comments. We want to know anything that you do specifically when you're going into a market, whether it's your backyard or whether it's 10 states away, what you guys do when you're looking at properties and when you guys are driving around. So definitely love to hear it because we'd love to implement it, maybe.
Absolutely. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Have a good one.
All right.